5 after, maybe with respect to the people who came on time, we should get started and others can join us later. As you may see from your screen, my name is John Kaufman. I am the board president of the Claremont Canyon Conservancy and want to welcome you all to our annual meeting. We all miss being at the Claremont Hotel and having a glass of wine and some hors d'oeuvres, but instead we offer you the convenience of your own home. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Let me begin by introducing my colleagues on the board. And I don't know whether you'll be able to see them all. Some have video, some don't. But let me just read their names in alphabetical order. Josh Borkowski, Marilyn Goldhaber,
Hello.
Jerry Kent, Chris Lehman. Chris is our newest board member, so a special welcome to you. Nancy Mueller, Elizabeth Stage, and Tim Wallace, and our treasurer is Kay Luhman. So I want to just say a couple words about the board. This is a working board. We have different responsibilities ranging from publishing our semi-annual newsletter and putting out our monthly email to lobbying various public officials for issues of concern to us. And most recently, with thanks to Elizabeth, managing Zoom, which is something that we've all had to learn over the last few months. They're all hardworking people and we appreciate what they do for us. This past year, as you know from reading our newsletter, we have not been able to do our monthly stewardship, nor have we had our bird walks, but we have been very busy. The city of Oakland has been working slowly and unsurely, but working on its own EIR for vegetation management, and we have been pressing our views on that subject. The university more recently has been putting out their own EIR and their own vegetation management plan, and we have been commenting on that. And by the way, those comments are on our website, and our website, thanks to Marilyn, is just full of information on all kinds of things related to the canyon and the environment. So please take a minute to look through that. It's very informative and worthwhile. So the other thing that we've been doing this year is working on something called a Joint Powers Agency. We have come to the conclusion that we all need to work together, whether we're in Oakland and Berkeley, on parkland, or anywhere in the East Bay Hills. And in order to expedite real progress, we need to get together and form a public agency that is concerned with preventing wildfires. Our fire departments do an excellent job of putting out fires, and they all work together on that front. But the prevention front is something that requires a lot more effort. So we've been working together with the Oakland Fire Safe Council and several other organizations, ranging from the Sierra Club to the Montclair Business Association, to put together support for a public agency that focuses on wildfire prevention. So that's been, in addition to the other things we've been doing over the years, that's something new. If you have questions about anything that the Conservancy is doing or anything that our speakers are going to talk about, please use the chat box on your screen to type in your questions, and we will get to them after our speakers are finished and answer as many as we can. So please do that. And if you are in gallery view now, you are looking at all our faces. If you want to focus on our speaker, there's a box that says speaker view or gallery view. If you click on that, you will change to the other mode and you'll be able to focus more on what the speaker is saying. So having said that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Marilyn Goldhaber for the next bit.
Couple minutes. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. I wish we could be together in person, but it's great to see you. So the Conservancy is now 19 years old. We're coming up upon our 20th anniversary, which will be next year. And I want to thank all the members who have supported the Conservancy over the last 19 years, in particular, our founding sponsors. Many of you sitting or on our screen here are founding sponsors, I'm sure. And because of you, we were assured a successful first 10 years. Many of you have also contributed almost the same amount for the next 10 years. So we're coming up to 2021, which will be our 20th anniversary. So I thank you, founding sponsors, but also everybody at whatever level of membership. You're greatly appreciated by the board and everybody. And we also appreciate our volunteers. And as John said, going from the board to the people who are in the canyon, who work on trails, pull weeds, lead nature walks, that kind of thing. We hope we can be getting back to those next year sometime. Historically, each year we take in about $25,000 from our members. In the beginning, we had a grant to get started, but our membership is keeping us going, keeping us afloat. In the last 5 years, we've had a handful of members donating at a higher rate, and it's been wonderful because we've been able to put away some money. We have a nest egg, and it's possible that we will be needing that in the next year for maybe legal reasons. And eventually we'll be wanting probably a executive director and move up to the next level of our organization. So if anybody knows a young person, especially if it's a young person who would like to help run the Conservancy, that we would love to hear from you or hear from that person. So now I'd like to move on to the rest of the meeting. Oh, by the way, it's membership renewal, and just go to the website, hit the donate button, or send your check in through the little envelopes that came with your newsletter. So now I'd like to introduce our first speaker. That's Carl Pennypacker. Say something, Carl. There you are.
Hello, hello.
He's going to tell us about the FUEGO project, which he heads, and it has to do with using the state-of-the-art technology to locate small wildland fires before they erupt into something that turns into a firestorm. It's very, very important work, and he works at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab up on the hill. He's one of us. Carl is an accomplished astrophysicist, and he has spent his career looking up at the universe. And his specialty is detecting small signals amongst a cluttered background. So after honing these skills on, as he says, astrophysically interesting objects, he's now applying skills to the more immediate well-being of society by helping reduce the danger from wildland fires faced especially by global warming. So Carl, what is the FUEGO project?
Great. Yeah, first, let me thank everybody. Particular thanks to Marilyn and Nat. You know, we've been friends for, I estimate 40 years. And she's always been a cheerleader for our astrophysics work. And so, and I'll talk a little later about her father-in-law, Gerson, who was a huge influence on the supernova work. Probably the first man to know the universe was accelerating in Berkeley. But I'll talk about Gerson a little later. Anyway, but the idea is that we try to find fires very early. That's something I'm pretty good at, finding little bright spots in a big cluttered background. And we've had to bring in new tools like machine learning. And simply put, you know, from space, we're confident we can find a fire about as big as a sandbox from geosynchronous orbit. You know, you always hear, well, the Hubble can see a match on the moon. Well, from geosynchronous orbit, we can see a tiny fire. And the idea is that it should be apparent that small fires are easier to put out than conflagrations. And with some of the impacts of climate change, small fires turn into conflagrations on the matter of scales of tens of minutes. So, you know, the whole idea of getting something early, responding to it quickly, which is not, we don't have it completely in hand, the response, but I think it's going to evolve, I think can be a Band-Aid to get us through to when we reverse climate change. This collaboration, FUEGO, the F stands for fire, and then U is urgency, estimator on geosynchronous orbit. It started off with a satellite, you know, 25,000 miles away in geo, but now we've come down to lower altitudes and tried to build other resources. I hope I don't confuse you with the altitudes. I'll try to make that clear in my talk. And we are a collaboration of Alert Wildfire, that's based at the University of Nevada, Reno, University of Wisconsin. They're responsible for getting the fire data from the GOES satellite. You'll see GOES a little later, GOES. That's our nation's one of our nation's most important weather satellites. So we're sucking data down from that now. Also, our funding actually comes through Scripps Institute of Technology, Professor Neil Driscoll, and he's working on subcontract from CAL FIRE. And my institutions are Space Science Lab, Lawrence Berkeley Lab, and UCB Department of Physics. My most powerful collaborator, he's online here, is Fireball Reno. Tim Ball is the president of Fireball. And well, since I can say this, to my mind, he knows about as much about fires, detection, you know, and imaging as anybody in the world. And so he's just been a superb collaborator. Okay, I think I probably went over my limit on that slide. Whoops. Okay, well, things have been, you've probably noticed we're getting more and more fires. Actually, and you know, my colleagues on UC Berkeley, Maggie Kelly, a collaborator on an original paper, she had worked on CalDOP with others, and you know, back in 2010 or so, they were saying, hey, you know, if you project climate change, you know, the fuels are going to get drier and drier, all these other bad things are going to happen, and now, so welcome to the pyrocene. So you know, not to be alarmist, but you know, I think we saw it coming, and you know, civilizations really can't respond very well to data. They have to have a catastrophe. You know, I hope that'll change with our new president. But I think now we're in kind of a situation where we're having worse and worse fires, and people are getting the idea that there's something amiss with our environment and our ecosystem. Again, I don't want to say I told you so, because there's a place in hell for people like that, so I won't say that. But here is a graph. Gee, I'm not showing the axes very well, but this is millions of acres per year. This is a graph of the U.S. Acres burned. It's pretty clearly increasing. You know, it's roughly about double where it was even in 1980 for the U.S. California, a little bit more noise in the system. I don't like that red line. I got this off the web, but California is getting worse. I mean, we had I think the August fire, which may or may not still be burning up north, was a 1 million acre fire. So it seems like every year we get the biggest fire. Most of you know this, so let me I'll try to go fast. Let's see, collaboration, really, you know, we're part of a big system. We don't pretend we're the whole answer. You know, we want to try to chip in and fill in some holes where we think the system could use us. Again, I mentioned Tim Ball. He's on the line now. I hope he can chime in when I swerve off topic or say things incorrectly. We have strong collaborators in Australia. Australia is in terrible shape too. I mean, Australia and California share similar ecosystems and weather and climate, and of course, so they're starting to burn up. They had the worst fires ever last year, as far as I can tell. Let's see, and I'm some of my collaborators who will help us build the satellite or Space Science Lab, Ed Wishnell, Cody Ryder, and then kind of our principal investigator is Neil Driscoll at University of California, San Diego. And you know, a lot of ways, this issue is an issue of education. And I think it's so important that we have great groups like the Conservancy to help educate, you know, ourselves and the community, because that's really how we're going to solve it. I mean, our present governor, Governor Newsom, is so well educated about fires, and he gets it, you know, and that has not always been the case with governors of California. So we're so delighted with Governor Newsom. Oh, speaking of, also, we're getting more fires. You know, some of the reasons the world's wind speeds are whipping up, which apparently, like in the 80s, it looked like the world wind speeds were decreasing. Wind power might be doomed, but with more energy in the atmosphere, which we're seeing, kind of a sort of a not too extravagant a conclusion to think that the wind speeds are going up. You know, seeing more hurricanes, etc. It's not just California. Bolivia is on fire. Colorado, worst fires ever. So we don't have to make a strong case. And actually, this might be a little bit out. We are working with Australia. There's a picture of Australia, and there's actually a picture of a FUEGO image or a target over Australia. So just some of you have heard aspects of these. I just want to go over them. For the 7 deadly sins, here's a original vision of the 7 deadly sins from 1500. But we have drier fuels from climate change. We have stronger winds from climate change. Our fire seasons are longer. You know, summers have gotten longer. That nighttime humidity is not as high as it was. Back in the day, I'm told, fires used to set down at night. You know, the humidity had come up. You know, firefighters could take a break. At least, you know, the fires weren't in this raging mode. But that, I think it's fair to say that those days are gone. Again, this is a consequence of all these other things. Fires spot a lot more. Spotting is a term that means it's throwing embers, you know, up to miles downstream from a fire. So this can make a fire have an apparent velocity of something like, you know, tens of miles per hour, even 25 miles an hour. A fire has a lot of turbulence, convection, throws an ember, you know, goes miles down. I think there's some record in Australia of maybe 100 miles, but you know, then of course we have these weird things called fire tornadoes. We've seen those, so much turbulence in a fire, so much heat and convection that they form a fire tornado. You know, we are seeing more dead trees. This is, I don't have time to go into it. It's not having, as far as I can tell, having a lot of dead trees on the ground doesn't make things worse, but it is an indicator that the forest is terribly unhealthy. And that's the bad news. So let's see. So how can I get back here? Oh, wait. Okay, but we think help is on the way. This is in as much as I don't think we're the ultimate solution. You know, getting climate change under control is the long term, but I think we do have a period of some decades where we're kind of in trouble, and so that's what the rest of my talk will be describing, I think. So we've developed a growing capability within our collaboration to detect small bits of smoke from, you know, up to, you know, 5, 10, 20 miles away. We can see a little bit of smoke from, you know, from 10 miles. Maybe about 3 minutes after the fire has started. And this is from the Alert Wildfire camera system and the HP RIN system that we're collaborating with. So eventually there'll be 1,500 of these cameras all over California, and we're chomping through the data continuously. We're currently using GLOW satellite data to help confirm or deny any detections from the camera system. This idea of fusing data from different altitudes is extremely important. We're designing our own satellite, the FUEGO satellite. We got funding from the Moore Foundation to actually undertake the design. Moore Foundation's been super. That's Gordon Moore, the co-founder of Intel. And also we got some funding to build an airborne mapping system, which was crucial. The origins of this were the Berkeley supernova searches, where we had in this picture, I don't know if can you see my cursor, guys?
Yes.
Whoops. Okay, we had an automated telescope over in the Leuschner Reserve over the hills from Berkeley. It could look at hundreds of galaxies a night. search for a small signal, bright star. That's a supernova in a distant galaxy, and we could use it to measure parameters of the universe. And that went pretty well, fair statement. Saul Perlmutter, I co-advised his thesis, got the Nobel Prize on this. The whole team shared the Breakthrough Prize and the Gruber Prize, which was nice. There's Saul and the King of Denmark, or Sweden, sorry. And actually, Gerson played a huge role in this. He saved the experiment several times, you know, against a not friendly lab management. You know, Gerson said, "Wait, this is good work. You know, it should be done." So I owe Gerson. I hope that you know, maybe this is some small way I can help pay Gerson back a little bit by helping out Claremont Canyon and Nat and Marilyn. Anyway, there's Saul and me. But again, you know, it's not obvious that finding a supernova, it's inspirational, but it's probably not saved one life nor one bit of ecosystem. And I think our chances are very good with this work that we can help save lives and ecosystems and property. So again, so our system, there's the little top view here is what you know, we have various parts of this already working. The fire tower system, actually it's not shown here. We have airborne systems that should be working within, we hope, about 6 months. And then we have various satellites at different heights that we'll be using. And just to the Alert Wildfire Camera Network, you know, there are about 1,000 cameras. Should be, I think I thought it was 1,500 they're going to, Tim. But it's been funded by the utilities as part of their payback to the state, PG&E, SDG&E, et cetera. SoCal Edison, Cal Fire's been supporting this. So it's actually a quite well organized, quite well run system. You can see these cameras can see, you know, up to 20 miles an hour. I'll show you an example. And we have a lot of Bay Area cameras, okay? And again, I know we're in Berkeley, there are concerns for privacy and monitoring, but the resolution of these cameras is, you know, you get is probably on the order of 0.5 meter to 1 meter to 2 meters. So they'll never be able to track people, you know, or cars, or if you're in their house or out of your house. So, and actually houses are blanked out of the view. So there is concern about privacy and security for normal humans. So that I just wanted to say that. Been some concern about that. But we do have about 5 cameras with the potential to see smoke in the canyon. They're atop the Wells Fargo building, downtown Berkeley, Fulmer Peak, Fulmer Tower, the top, the Clorox building, and Nickel Knob. Now people can go to alertwildfire.org. That's the URL, and go to these cameras and watch them in process. They're typically rotating every few minutes, getting new images. And again, what we'll be doing is we're looking for new events like what we see here. Here's one. This is in 2018 in Southern California. We're able to see this pretty good. We caught the fire about with our software about 11 minutes after it went off. It's still pretty tiny. I mean, we think we can do better than that, but we're still pretty proud of it. I mean, look at this image, and these we see here. These little boxes are the scores. You know, is there a fire, not a fire? And it really, they said, here's a fire. So actually, the human eye could do this pretty easily, but you can't have the human eye scanning, you know, millions of images a day. So we're quite proud to get this working, and it uses something called machine learning, which is a system that tries to emulate what eyeballs do, but with a computer. Here's a false, a true negative. We've trained it so when it sees fog, it doesn't go crazy. So we're proud of that too. It had a pretty low score there, and we're using some of the machine learning to characterize what we're seeing with satellites. So, and again, that's part of the fusing of data from different altitudes, and we can look. Again, we're also using these cameras. We can triangulate on the fire to get the distance of the smoke, and then also check it with the GOES satellite. GOES satellite is a great satellite, but it's probably, its limit is probably fires of about 1 acre. And these days that's too low a bar for us. We really want to go much smaller. Yes, I don't know if that's the right metaphor. Here's a typical fire that we detected in Napa County a while ago. But actually we detected it when it was smaller. Let's see. Oh wait, it went the wrong way. Okay. Oh, here now. So that's I'm going to change gears a little bit. That was the camera system. How am I doing on time, by the way, Marilyn? Okay. Well,
I think you're doing fine. Are you more than halfway through?
I'm about halfway, I think.
So let's ask Elizabeth. Are we doing okay? How about Chief Luby?
Well, no, we're good. The question will be whether we're getting a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
And so depending on, it's actually John who's keeping track of when to do the question and answer.
Okay.
We might have all the questions after Nick. It depends on what.
I think if you took about 5 or 10 more minutes, does that work for you?
Oh, absolutely. Great. And actually, this is something that should raise the hair on the back of your neck is a frontline show. It's called Fire in Paradise. It's freely available on pbs.org, but it breaks your heart to listen to it. And here it turned out by coincidence, pure coincidence, a Landsat 8 was passing overhead a little time after the fire erupted, the campfire, and got an image. And this is what they found. They saw essentially all of the exit roads were blocked by the fire. And the emergency response, here's the fire direction. So emergency responders were down here saying, get out of town, folks, get out of town, head out these roads. And they were essentially sending people into fires, which is, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. They just, firefighters, emergency responders do not have an idea of where the fire is. So we're developing imaging systems. Tim is building these. He has funding now that can fly an airplane, and you could get images of the fire every half hour or so easily. But that's not done either. So it's extraordinary. When we think about advances in telecommunications and imaging, how badly that's done.
Fire in Paradise. Frontline show, Fire in Paradise.
Yeah, Frontline. It's on Frontline, Fire in Paradise. I really recommend it.
I'm just putting on. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so good. Yay. These kids, Marilyn, you're amazing. These internet whizzes, they can do things while I'm not even thinking. Okay, so the third initiative is the FUEGO geosynchronous satellite, which satellite's a way overstatement. Here it is right here. It's a little pimple on the rear end of this ComSat. I don't think we're a pimple on the rear end of Progress, but I think we're on the ComSat here. It makes it, it drops the price of satellite a factor of 2 at least, probably more. And this system, we just got funding to start to design it. The community's okayed it. We had a published paper in 2013, when I showed those pictures. We designed the satellite there. Actually, we were inspired by the Oakland Fire, which was, decades before that. But we got this published in remote sensing. Everybody checked our numbers. We can see this, sandbox-sized fire with huge signal noise. It burns up our detectors almost in signal noise. And here's some of our collaboration. You might recognize Scott Stevens on there. One of the world's experts on fires. Maggie Kelly, an amazing jazz expert. Student Marek, who did most of the work. Michael Lampton, well-known space scientist. Chris Schmidt, the Wisconsin GOES guy, and Bob Tripp, a physicist in the department. And actually, we went and UC said, well, this might be worth something. We're not sure how, but we have a patent on it with UC. It's been published. The patent examiner liked it. I have no idea why. And actually, we've done a preliminary study. I don't expect you to read this, but Cody Ryder has done a breakdown of what the satellite would look like. That helped us get the funding from Moore Foundation. Okay, again, FUEGO is way more sensitive than GOES. Okay, here's our GOES satellites. FUEGO's down here about, 100 times more sensitive. And also, more importantly, it can see things, about 10 to 100 times more frequently than our other array of satellites. Yeah, what we're plotting here, sorry, this is on the y-axis are the power in watts of a fire. So going up means bigger fires. And on the x-axis is the time between images. So these kind of look at it once a day, 10 to the 5th seconds in a day. These are pass over once a day. And these, and FUEGO is geosynchronous, so it can do a constant update. Here we've done some studies on the optics. Again, more you want to know, but it looks official. Here's how it sit. Here's how it would sit on the ComSat, just a little box with a mirror, some electronics. It does cost tens of millions of dollars, but that's trivial compared to the cost of FIRE's optics. Oh, and again, we've been fortunate, not that money grows on trees, but we've been fortunate in as much as that we've been funded by CAL FIRE for the analysis of the camera data from the cameras, and also blending the satellite data with the camera data, which is very important. And then Moore Foundation just last week awarded us with funds to design the satellite and the airborne camera system. So this is excellent news. Okay, oh yeah, one last point and I'm all done. I mean, where did you find a fire earlier? Well, even if you don't go to heroic measures, a study, collaborators at Australian National University looked at it. What if you could get to a fire, I think it would say within 10 minutes, how much money would that save? It turns out it's about $8 billion over a decade. And put in climate change, about $14 billion. So our satellites chump change in comparison. And actually, there's been amazing developments with airborne super tankers, both DC-10s and 747s. But I think Tim and I have a dream that, when our satellite or we have the satellites working well, we could launch have an airborne tanker in the air in the red flag warning zone, and it could get to a fire within 15 minutes. And that probably would have put for example, that would have put a big dent in the campfire. Campfire spread so quickly, ground crews were helpless against it. So anyway, I mean, so that's all I have to say. I think the future is really encouraging for this application of technology at all altitudes. But we do, we're not working in isolation. We need groups like the Conservancy, and I hope we can be in your service, and you can tell us how we can serve you better. Thank you.
Okay, if people have questions, please type them in the chat. Some of you already have, and then we'll take the questions after our second speaker. So Elizabeth, do you want to introduce our next speaker?
I'd be pleased to do so. Chief Luby is the deputy chief at Oakland Fire, and he's been with the department for many years, but he's now got every young man's dream of being in charge of all the red trucks. And the thing that I enjoy most about working with him as a community member who's working on fire prevention as well as suppression is that he's putting out fires every day, sometimes in our locale and sometimes on mutual aid elsewhere. And he's trying to figure out how to protect us as citizens, also how to protect his team so that they can save more lives, and how to use the tools of technology in the future to keep us all safer. So I think he's a perfect complement to Carl. Carl has a great imagination and forward-looking in terms of inventing more capable tools. And Nick is using everything from no parking signs and access to also detection equipment. So Nick, if you're ready to share your screen and take it away, we'll be pleased to hear from you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Just making sure you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Very good. And Carl, you have a very, you got a new admirer. You and I need to go get a cup of coffee or something.
You're too kind, Nick.
That was riveting, and to be honest with you, our paths actually crossed more than I expected. You know, I think you're talking about the FIRUS aircraft program for live detection, and we're working with Wildfire and Oakland Fire, and we're striving to get more cameras up through Alert Wildfire. So maybe you and I, after we're done with this, can connect there. So
we can have a Zoom coffee.
A Zoom, yes, a Zoom coffee, virtual coffee. So anyway, let me share my screen and make sure that's working. Can everyone, let's see. One sec, where'd we go? All right, you should see PowerPoint up on your screen. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Let's take a break. That was half the work I had to do to get that to work. Well, let me start out by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time on this lovely Sunday to support the Conservancy, and also garner the information that both Carl and I have to offer. I am, mine's going to be a little more boots on the ground, as Elizabeth said, real life, what we're doing every day to make sure that each and every one of you as Oakland residents, or if you're Berkeley residents, to make sure that you're safe. And we also have an opportunity to tell you where we're going and what new technology we're going to use. It does not involve satellites and supernovas, but it actually, I actually can see a connection with Carl and what Carl's working with to help us with evacuations. So today, the discussions that I'll be covering is the new norm. Oh, wait, we like to call it now the extreme. We don't call it the new norm anymore because it is extreme fire behavior. I'll go over the 2020 fire season. I will be talking to you about the Alameda County Evacuation Task Force and the evacuation planning that's taking place in Oakland with new technology. I'll briefly touch on the Fire Safe Streets program that we've been working on for several years with District 1 and District 4. And I'll talk real quickly about what else we have up our sleeves and what we're working on. And again, Carl and I probably should have connected before this because our paths actually crossed more than I expected. So almost at a point that I think I may have some of the same slides that Carl has. Apparently we go to the same websites. So who am I? I am the Deputy Chief of Operations. And as Elizabeth alluded to, if it's red and has wheels and it belongs to the fire department, it's my responsibility. I got 21 years in the department. Before that, I came from Cal Fire and bring a wildland experience. I am a proud Oakland resident. I live up near Skyline High School in the Wildland Urban Interface. As was alluded to, I still continue to be very active in the wildland environment as a strike team leader, taking crews out throughout the state to fight fires as they erupt. And also I was part of a federal incident management team, interagency team 4 for several years, traveling outside of the state and inside the state, fighting some of the largest wildfires that we have seen. As the deputy chief, on top of overseeing the field operations, I also oversee technical operations for the city, which is the rescue programs and the aircraft rescue that we do at the Oakland Airport, along with the hazmat and water rescue, and then also support operations, which has to do with technology and also overseeing our fire dispatch center and how that's going to evolve with integrating what Carl talked about with using camera systems and real life technology to get real-time intel into our dispatch center so we can get the right resources going as quickly as we can, because as was said earlier, and we all know on this phone call, the number one thing is to put out a fire, actually back up. The number one thing is to not have the fire start, but if it starts, to get it out as quickly as we can so that we don't lose any lives or property. I'm passionate about wildfire surge capacity is what I call it. Community resiliency and preventing and preparing for our next wildfire. I did not live in Oakland in 91. I was living in the peninsula as a freshly out of high school kid. And I remember the day clearly, and it is my goal, as long as I'm here, to do everything I can to prevent that from happening again. And probably once I leave, I'll still be working on it. So a couple of these slides, I'll breeze through real quickly because it kind of reiterates what Carl said. The new extreme. We used to call it the new norm in the fire service, and about a couple of years ago, and I'll be honest with you, I think when I met with Neil Driscoll, and I met him for the first time, I think he used the word new extreme. And it is the extreme. It's no longer the norm. We're getting fires that are freight trains that are going through communities at a football field a second. And it is, it's scary for us in the fire service, and it's really scary for the residents. The data and science doesn't lie, and I don't have to tell anyone on this phone call that that is the reality. The seasons are getting longer. The rainy seasons are shorter. The droughts are going to be more common. The temperatures are higher, and the fires are burning with an intensity and a ferocity, I guess, that we have never seen in the fire service. And as you know, what Carl's working on and other technologies are going to be critical to making sure that lives and property are saved. So similar to what Carl had gone over, what you're looking there is a slide: wildfires without climate change, wildfires with climate change. The yellow on the bottom is basically using data and where science believes wildfires would be in cumulative area burned. And you can see we're almost anticipated to be doubled as we go forward with climate change and controlling the fires. The 2020 fire season was like nothing we've ever seen before. About 4% of the state burned up, 4.2 million acres as to date, 9,100 fires, or over 9,100 fires between state and federal land. We unfortunately lost 30 firefighters and also civilians, and 8,000 structures were burned again this year. PG&E PSPSs, the power outages, are the new standard, and we learned it was interesting this year because last year when we did our first public safety power shutdown, the community kind of was a little taken back, a little taken by surprise, wasn't expecting it, hadn't prepared for it. There was a lot of anger towards PG&E to shut the power off, and it was interesting when we had ours, the two that we had this year in Oakland. It was a lot different. The community, I think, has accepted this as the new standard in order to make sure the community stays safe, and also it appears that they've embraced the need to prepare for the power outages. And then the other thing is, and we all see it, is the red flags are one after another, and we're running into a situation with red flag fatigue. And the community is getting complacent. And I will always say that complacency is the number one enemy of the fire service. It's the gravity that pulls us down. And that's something we're going to have to manage going forward, is the repeated red flags and people getting complacent and saying, well, nothing happened on the last red flag. Why do I need to prepare for this red flag? And so that's something the fire service and public information officers and the community at large and the Conservancy and the Oakland Fire Safe Councils and everyone are going to have to work with for the next many years coming to make sure the community doesn't get, as I call it, red flag fatigue. 2051 spare the air days so far this year, and 5 of the largest fires burned in 2020. So the reality is very evident to all of us. The picture of City Hall there was taken on September 9th by myself. We all remember that day, the day the sun didn't come out. It was a little creepy. And that was taken at 9:30 in the morning when I went to work on the 9th. August 16th, we all remember the lightning siege. We had 3 of the largest fires that hit the Bay Area all simultaneously, something that we in the fire service never, ever anticipated happening for 2 things. One, that we'd have 3 major complexes burning within the geographic area, what we call the Greater Bay Area, due to lightning. We don't see 2,500 ground strikes in the Bay Area in one storm, as everyone on this phone call knows. And 2, the fact that we had 3 mega fires burning in the Greater Bay Area was, I mean, that's stuff that we would have expected to see in Southern California, but we were the epicenter, and that's what I can speak of with years in the fire service. This is Southern California stuff. This is not Northern California experiences we're having, and now we're just like Southern California. So the 2020, I can't wait for it to be over. I won't lie to you. I'll be honest with you. Everyone tells me I'm way too honest. I'll be honest. I can't wait for fire season to be over. I'll touch real quickly on the Crown Fire. October 7th happened up on Crown and Marywood. It comes up a lot in conversation with the community that lives in Oakland. I won't lie to you. We dodged a bullet. There's no way around it. If that fire had happened 2 days earlier or on that Sunday, I think it was a Sunday night when we had 55-mile-an-hour winds cresting across Grizzly Peak. I mean, I can't speculate what would have happened, but it would have been a different outcome. I can tell you that. Due to the aggressive and attack by the Oakland Fire Department and having resources available and be able to put on that fire as quickly as we did. Unfortunately, we lost 2 houses, but it had the potential to be much greater loss, and that is that's something I'm proud of as operations chief of the men and women that responded to that incident. And I'm also very thankful that Mother Nature was on our side that day. You know, one of the things that we did learn at the Crown Marywood fire is, actually, let me go back real quick. One thing I wanted to point out to you, for everyone that lives in the Oakland Hills, if you look up at the fire hydrant that connected on that picture right there, that fire hydrant was the fire hydrant closest to the fire. First responding engine couldn't find it. It was buried in dirt. So if you're someone that lives in the Oakland Hills and you have a fire hydrant on your street or pass by it on your walks and you see that it's overgrown with vegetation or the hillside sloughed down and partially covered it, my ask of you is, if you can, take the time to uncover it so it's available when we need it. And if you can't do it, don't hesitate to report it to your local fire station, or you can email me and I'll make sure I get the resources up there. You know, if we don't have the water, we can't put the fire out. So I just wanted to point that out because we did miss that hydrant and we had to go back and dig it out in order to get a water supply for that fire. The other thing we learned on the fire was something that most of us already knew, but I'll be honest, with 21 years in the Oakland Fire Department, seeing it firsthand is a whole different experience. And I know there's probably many of you that went through the 91 fire and experienced this firsthand, but our infrastructure has not changed since 91. When we get into evacuation discussion in a minute, you can see these apparatus were parked. These streets were completely blocked. More help couldn't get in, had to park farther away. And if someone had to leave, it was going to be challenging. So we lucked out on this fire that most everyone had parked off the street and used their driveways as we asked, and we're not blocking the road. But a fire engine needs at least 12 feet minimum to get through. And as you can see, that our streets, unfortunately, don't stretch wider as we come through. So anything you can do to make sure that you maintain pathways of ingress and egress on our narrow Oakland Hills streets is greatly appreciated. So let's talk about evacuation. So Carl's doing a great job of trying to find the fire. I'm committed to making sure we do everything we can to put the fire out, but let's be realistic. There's going to be the situation that comes up where we can't get the fire out and we have to start evacuations. So we started Alameda County Evacuation Task Force in 2018, and that is made up of fire, police, Office of Emergency Services, GIS specialists, geoinformation specialists, mapping specialists, emergency managers from throughout Alameda County. And it got started after the 2017. It was a really bad fire season for us. The North Bay fires, as we all know, the Thomas fire down in Ventura had to evacuate mostly all of the city of Ventura with little to no notice. And we had 42 fatalities statewide. And we came back from that fire season in this county and we said, we got to do something. We can't just sit back. So in 2018, Oakland, Alameda County, and several other agencies, Berkeley, all came together. We created an evacuation task force. And we started working on trying to figure out how we can have cross-jurisdictional plan to efficiently and effectively facilitate evacuation real time for our communities in the county. And as we worked on it in 2018, we had the car fire. Unfortunately, 8 more individuals passed away, 3 of them being firefighters. And as everyone knows, we had the Camp Fire with 85 fatalities. We continue to work and try to work with our GIS specialists to make a seamless program or application that we could use. And unfortunately, progress in early 2019, we realized we just weren't getting to where we needed to be, and the boundary coordination was super challenging. And then we started talking, and we realized we're not alone. This is a regional problem, a statewide problem, and to be honest with you, it's becoming an international problem, and that it needed multi-jurisdictional coordination. And then from, as I call it, from the heavens fell Zonehaven. Zonehaven was created as a startup company in 2019, and several agencies had reached out to them, and the #1 agency they were working for, county, was San Mateo County, and they saw the need just like we did, and Zonehaven, Charlie Crocker from Zonehaven, and a couple of his partners created a evacuation platform. And in late 2019, we went on a roadshow around the county, talked to police chiefs and fire chiefs. We got countywide support. We identified 5 years of funding through Homeland Security grant money. And Alameda County Sheriff's Office became a lead agency for working on getting a contract with Zonehaven. And here we are in 2020. Unfortunately, COVID slowed us down, but we were able to achieve a contract with Zonehaven in September of this year. And we are full speed ahead right now in implementation of a regional, and when I say regional, multi-county now, because multiple counties are using Zonehaven, evacuation planning application. Zonehaven.com. You guys can write it down, or we can put it up in the chat if you want to go to their website and see what they're working on and how they're growing. And I'll tell you right now, listen to what Carl had to say. I can see more technology and getting it integrated into the Zonehaven model as we move forward. I'm going to try this video and see if it runs, if I have enough bandwidth. I kicked all the kids off of every electronic device in the house, so hopefully they're not sucking bandwidth, and we'll see if this runs real quick. Mandatory fire evacuation order.
When seconds matter. Fires that move incredibly fast, that actually force people to run from their homes,
not ready.
Have become the new normal in California.
No, not working. Elizabeth?
No.
Okay. It's on the Zonehaven website. It's just, it talks about how San Mateo County started it. I will just, I'll pass it, or I'll put the link up on the chat. So types of evacuations and terminology. We have planned evacuations, and that I would say is a fire that, let's say, starts in the northern part of Orinda, you know, out towards, far out towards the reservoir, and starts out there and start heading with a north wind. And we have some time knowing that it's coming. And that's the planned evacuation. We're anticipating, maybe they'll get it, maybe they won't stop it, but we need to start getting information out to our community. And then the one that's more scary is the no notice evacuation. The go now, the campfire scenario, the Thomas fire scenario, the Tubbs fire scenario, 3 o'clock in the morning, a car fire down on Redwood Road, or a car fire off of Highway 24 in Orinda starts coming up the hill, and within 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it's at the Oakland border, or already started in Oakland, and we have to go, and we have to go now. And those are the most challenging ones to get the information out and facilitate a timely and effective evacuation, especially with our infrastructure. So California OES in 2020 of May, we found another issue was, or before that, we found another issue, terminology was all over the place. People were calling evacuation notices, warnings, preparedness, all these different words. So in 2020, we came up with a common nomenclature, and the three of them are, you have an evacuation order, and that means you got an immediate threat to life, and it's a lawful order. You need to go, and you need to go now, and no one can come back in. You got an evacuation warning, which is a potential, which is that the fire may get here. So let's start packing stuff up. Let's be prepared. Let's be ready to go. It can't hurt to leave now. And I'll go into that a little later, but you don't have to leave. We're not coming and knocking on your door saying, let's go. And then shelter in place, not used a lot in fires. We prefer not to, but sometimes you may have to shelter in place for other emergencies, such as hazardous material spills. If you're sheltering in place in a fire, that means your evacuation route was blocked and you had to go back and get in your home, and hopefully you have hardened your home to be a place that you can survive a wildfire. So evacuate the zone haven. So zone haven is basically solving the problems we got now with wildfire. When everything else has failed, the prevention has failed, the suppression has failed, and now we are in a fire attack. And it's not effective. The fire is not stopping. Now it's going to allow us to have the multi-agency coordination between counties, not only cities, but counties, because Contra Costa County, Santa Clara County, Santa Cruz County, San Mateo County, Solano County, and Alameda County, I think, are the ones that are currently signed up to get it up and running. We will be able to talk amongst each other. So if the fire's coming up over the hill from Orinda, an Orinda Fire Battalion Chief can say, I need to start evacuating Oakland zones 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 along Grizzly Peak and Skyline Boulevard because this fire is going to be up there in 40 minutes. We didn't have that before. The other thing we're doing now is these fires are no longer fires that we're putting out. They're turning into mass rescue casualty incidents. And that's something we're trying to teach our firefighters about, because we're trained to put fire out, put the wet stuff on the red stuff. That's what we're taught to do. And what's happening now is that's not working. So now we need to switch gears and tactical objectives and really just get into a mode of getting each and every one of you and your neighbors and your family members out of the way of the freight train. So it's a concept we're trying to teach our own personnel, our responding personnel. And this is also something that the software is going to help us try to get our arms around. We're covering larger areas because the fires are getting much bigger. Traffic congestion in the Bay Area, before COVID, was out of control. It will be back out of control. And that's another challenge that we have to manage with evacuations. And one of our biggest fears or biggest concerns is helping the vulnerable population, individuals that have access and functional needs, children, elderly, pregnant, disabled, people that just cannot get out on their own. And this is, again, hopefully a platform that we're going to use to get us what we need. This is just going over that we're in this together. We're talking here about how we're going to take technology to do what we've been doing by hand. Evacuations now, or this past summer, if I had to do them in Oakland, I'd be on a map drawing around the communities I needed to evacuate. And then we would have to be trying to effectively evacuate and disseminate the information that needed to be pushed out. And that's another challenge. So this new application is going to get rid of the map and put it into an application that you as the community can see, and also the first responders can see on the backside with critical information. And it's also going to do the connection we need with the messaging. Before, it was very time consuming to get the messaging. Zone Haven has a lot of interfaces built, and they're going to be building more and more interfaces, hopefully, as we move along. And we'll be able to get the messaging out, whether it's through AC Alert, using social media, using the Zone Haven platform or application that the community will have access to, getting it to the media, and most importantly, we're getting it to law enforcement and fire companies that are coming in from mutual aid, so that everybody's using the same sheet of music during a major disaster. The Zone Haven, everything I've already discussed here. It's going over the, here, actually, this is a good point. Real-time map-based information. Carl will hopefully appreciate this. We're working with Zone Haven to connect with Wildfire. He mentioned it in his presentation. Wildfire does real-time fire modeling. The city of Oakland supports 2 remote automated weather stations. One's located at Grizzly Peak, another one at City Stables. And it gives us the ability to take real-time weather information, drop a pin where the fire started, download the information, and using the technology that Wildfire, the program out of UC San Diego, uses to do real-time fire modeling that will show us where the fire will be at 1, 3, 5 hours. And then that overlays with the evacuation zone, so we can either trigger an evacuation or a notification of a potential evacuation real time, so we can actually do some strategic planning in the process. So give you a quick little case study and let you know we didn't buy something that is not battle tested. And well, actually, I'll lie. That's actually a lie. We actually had already bought it, but it's been battle tested, and it got battle tested in the Santa Cruz Mountains this year during the CZU fire. What you're seeing is real pictures that were used in the planning process for the fire that ran through the Santa Cruz Mountains. It burned 85,000 acres. And with the use of Zone Haven, they facilitated the evacuation of 80,000 residents during that multi-week fire. And you can see on the picture on the screen that 134 evacuation zones were executed during that fire. The fire perimeter is the gray line that you see on the picture. The red area are mandatory evacuation zones. And then that linear yellow band that runs there is actually another county. That's actually into Santa Clara County, who had just signed on to Zone Haven. And the yellow is signifying evacuation warning. So you have two counties, Santa Cruz and San Mateo, that are doing mandatory evacuations, and Santa Clara County that use their new technology to do warnings in case the fire spread to the northeast. There's another picture of actually, that is how the application will look to public safety. And it shows, again, the Santa Clara application and how they affected it. And the other thing that it gives us is, you can see here, it gives us the population we're trying to evacuate, the vehicles we're evacuating, the square miles or acreage we're evacuating. So it helps the law enforcement to be able to plan how long it's going to take to get the vehicles and the community out using census data. Oh, went too far. Here you're looking at, so let's get all caught up to speed. We got Zone Haven. We got 11 teams throughout the county working on implementation. We're hoping to have it up and operational by January of 2021. The zones are already preliminarily built, and we are now ground truthing the zones, looking at infrastructure and how they were built by Zone Haven using the data and metrics that they use to create the zones. And we're making adjustments to them. We're also adding in traffic control points, temporary evacuation points, and temporary refuge areas so that we have everything on a map. And then once that's in, we will hit the go live button, and then we will start doing training. And we hope to do some actually community-based drills in the early part of spring of next year to, again, test everything out before, hopefully we don't need it, but before we do need it, if the case arises. So another question I get a lot of the time is, how will I know to evacuate? And I can tell you now, how you will know to evacuate now is there's several ways. And the one is, the proven method that has worked for all communities going way back when, door-to-door notifications, whether it's a fire engine, a police car trying to drive through the streets, whether it's a neighbor alerting neighbor. Those are, the basic concepts of evacuation, of us getting the message out using bullhorns and sirens and driving and door knocking, and also neighbors letting neighbors know, hey, we got to go, there's a fire, or I just got a phone call, or etc. The next level is getting into technology. Hopefully everybody on this call has logged into AC Alert and signed up. If you haven't, acalert.org. It's a critical piece of connectivity for us for emergency alerting. Make sure you opt into Oakland. And on top of AC Alert, we have the ability to send out what they call a wireless emergency alerting, which is similar to an Amber Alert. When your phones go off with an Amber Alert, we can do that in very critical situations. It takes a little bit of level of authority and approval to get it done. So if you haven't logged into AC Alert or opted in, we do have the ability to actually activate all cellular devices in a catastrophic event. So you won't get the early messaging, but if we're getting to the point that we are at a critical level, we do have that ability. We are constantly using Nixle, Nextdoor. The fire department Twitter website is a great source of information. A lot of community members are starting to use Citizen. I'll be honest with you, I use it. I haven't quite figured out where they get the information from, but we also, our public information officer has started to use that also to get messaging out to the community just to keep you informed. The siren system is still alive and well in Oakland, throughout the Oakland Hills. Gets tested the first Wednesday of every month at noon. We're actually getting ready to invest a little more resiliency money into that to make sure that it has the capacity to survive a multi-day power outage. And then Zone Haven's coming, folks. That's hopefully going to bring all this together into one platform so we can get that messaging out when you need it. A few more slides and I'll wrap it up. Evacuation routes, and I can't give more credit than to Carl about talking about how that is one of the most challenging things we have to deal with and try to message out is evacuation routes. And what we tell our community is no 2 or more ways out of your community. Your normal route may not be your best route, and it may not be available. It may either have fire. If it's a windy day and we're having extreme fire conditions, chances are trees are coming down. So you may think that's your way out, but it's not blocked by fire, but you have a Monterey pine blocking your road. So make sure you know 2, 3 ways out of your community. What we always tell our community is prepare for the worst and come up with temporary refuge areas. If you have a swimming pool, a lot of folks will use swimming pools if you can't get out. If you can't, you're blocked by fire, you're blocked by trees, you're blocked by down power lines. Start thinking about temporary refuge areas. And what I always preach is make sure your home is prepared and hardened, and is it ready to save your life? Because that is going to be the last place you're going to probably go and try to ride out a fire. If it's coming through the community and everything else has failed, make sure you've prepared that home, because the house can take the force of a moving fire front and can take the heat and the energy out of it a lot of the time. And then you can evacuate the house once it catches on fire and it's survivable. I can tell you that firsthand. I have been in a fire, and I have been engulfed in a fire. And I will tell you, I can attest to the fact that when you think everything's good, within 5 minutes, you are surrounded by fire. And that happened to me up on the Tubbs fire in 2017. And 5 days into the fire, I ended up surrounded by the fire and ended up losing, our vehicle ended up burning up, and we ended up having to take refuge from the fire. So the point being is fire is so hard to predict when it's moving as fast as it is with wind, and always have a plan if all else plans fail of how you're going to survive the flaming fire front. And like I said, temporary refuge areas. Is your house ready for it? Defensible spaces. Make sure there's a last resort that you've prepared your home for that. Go early. That's another thing we talk about, especially with traffic congestion. Don't wait to be told. If you think you need to go. Don't wait. If you're access and functional needs residents, or you have friends or family and it's a red flag, seriously consider relocating to prior to the fire. It's a message that we've been trying to get out. I know Berkeley pushed out a similar message recently. We don't call it evacuation, we call it relocating. And I will tell you, my own family does it. When the winds start hitting 40 miles an hour at my house in the Oakland Hills, we will usually pack up, or they will pack up and relocate over to family members on the peninsula, because waiting until the fire starts is too late a lot of the time to get out effectively and safely. So next steps for Zone Haven: sign up for your AC alert, watch for Know Your Zone campaign in 2021. Ready, Set, Go. If you're not familiar with it, it is the CAL FIRE website that helps you prepare for getting ready for evacuation. The set part is right before you evacuate, and go is when you get that evacuation warning. And that is something we're going to tie together with the campaign to Know Your Zone in the early part of 2021. It's Ready, Set, Go. This is, again, readyforwildfire.org. Check out the website when you got a little time. A lot of good information for preparing for evacuation. I'm going to skip the video and talk real quickly about other things we're working on. Fire Safe Streets is an ongoing program. It's wish it was going quicker, and we try to put as much effort into it. It's duties on top of other duties that we work on between ODOT, or Department of Transportation, OFD. We've completed 23 streets so far. COVID has, again, been a challenge for us this year to put the energy and efforts that we would like to expanding that program. And we hopefully next year we'll be able to put more resources to it. Streets are analyzed by OFD and ODOT, and the criteria on the screen you can see is our typical criteria we use to determine where we want to put no parking or where we need to put no parking to maintain that the safety of the street. And this is not all about wildfire exclusively. This is about everyday fire department access and emergency vehicle access for emergency medical calls and structure fires, and obviously, of course, wildfires and evacuations. It's always helpful when the community is in agreement and collaboration. It really helps move the process along. When not everyone's on the same page, we do find a street does take much longer to get through the system and get through the approval process. And if you're interested or have more questions, you can always email firesafestreets@oaklandca.gov. And what else have we been doing and have up our sleeves? So equipment wise, we just purchased a brand new Type 3 wildland engine. So all of our Type 3 engines in the city, all 3 of them, they were all purchased after 1991 fire, and we will, as of next year, have all brand new equipment. One thing I'm pretty excited about is we are actually adding 2 water tenders, 2,500 gallon water tenders to our fleet. We had wanted to do that 29 years ago after the Hills fire. And there's a long story that goes along with that. But the good part of the story is we are going to be placing the order and bringing 2 water tenders into the fleet, which are critical for getting fires out in their incipient phase. Fire trail maintenance has been brought up to a new level, which helps us get access and also creates small fuel breaks throughout the Oakland Hills. I think most of you are familiar with everything that's happening on Grizzly Peak, but we, I don't know if you don't know, we had, I think 8, maybe 9 fire starts along the 5 miles of Grizzly Peak this year due to illegal activities in the area. So through working with the community, we have closed the turnouts. Carl uses satellites and really expensive technology. I go and find logs, and I put logs and turnouts to limit access to them and prevent the illegal activity. And it's been so far very well received. We have 2 coordinating groups that we're using right now, an internal wildfire coordination group, which is with citywide key stakeholders that meets every 2 weeks. And we also started an external multi-agency law coordination group to just address law enforcement coordination on Grizzly Peak to make sure that illegal activities are curtailed. We're working with the Wildfire Project. We're working with the Alert Wildfire Project, the cameras. We're trying to get more cameras added to the KPFA site. And we actually had them come out and look at the Oakland Coliseum, placing a camera on one of the light towers there to catch the East Oakland Hills. So we're hoping that that will happen this off season after they replace all the other cameras that unfortunately were burned up throughout the state. And we're also partnering with UC Berkeley and UC Davis on a project called Building Community Resilience by changing resilience to changing California hazards through digital twins and social gaming project. It's a pretty elaborate project. We've agreed to be a partnering community if the project is funded. And in a nutshell, if you haven't heard about it, it's basically figuring out how the community will react during evacuation and not waiting till it happens, but really using gaming and questionnaires and research to see how the human nature will be and what individuals will do when faced certain situations, such as a tree down or wires down or fire in front of them, and try to use that technology to build even more metrics to develop evacuation protocols going forward. And that was one of the things that they found during the campfire. Paradise had one of the most elaborate evacuation plans in all of the state, if not the nation. Unfortunately, the fire came faster than anyone ever expected. So we're looking forward to the project getting funded and hopefully partnering with Berkeley and Davis on that. Enhanced participation in mutual aid is ongoing for us. We, through about almost 2 months of this year, we had in excess of 30 firefighters deployed around the state. helping neighbor, as I call it, helping fight fires throughout the state of California, which is probably one of our most robust responses that we've had in many years. At no time did we drop our staffing below our minimum staffing for the city of Oakland, so you were never left unprotected. We also have been working closely with the OES called PREPO program. It's called Prepositioning of Apparatus. And if you see the picture there at the Claremont, those are resources from Department of, or California OES that they paid and funded to position in the city of Oakland during our red flag events. This particular strike team of 5 engines and a water tender I was able to get them assigned at the Claremont for the main wind event that we had several weeks ago. And they actually responded from the Claremont to the Crown Marywood fire, along with another fire we had along the freeway. So it is a state funded program that started after the North Bay fires, and they get about $25 million a year to fund the program. And if we hit a certain criteria, we can submit for a pre-positioning of these resources. And the higher the winds and the higher the potential for fire, we can even get more resources. And what that adds to us as a surge capacity is it's proven. I mean, these resources were critical at the Marywood Crown fire to ensuring that it stayed to the 2 structures. So, and finally, the remote automated weather systems or stations are getting a lot of attention. They're getting updated. They went many years without updating. They're now back up online, calibrated annually, and we are working with CAL FIRE to get them actually being used for real-time intel for fire modeling at the state level. And here are your takeaways. Sign up for AC Alert, visit Ready, Set, Go. Start getting excited about Zonehaven. Never, ever wait to be told to go. If you're concerned or worried, even before a fire starts, like I talked about relocating on a red flag, windy day, don't ever hesitate to do it. It's in your best interest. It can't hurt you to go early. You can always come back. I always add this. Don't forget we live on the Hayward Fault. We're all talking about wildfire here, but hey, wildfire might not be what ends up being our major disaster. So don't forget to stay prepared for the big earthquake. Red flag warnings. Weather Service does it for a reason. Please heed those warnings. Listen to them. Monitor the weather on red flag days. Stay extra cautious. Again, if you need to think you should relocate early. We're here to help, and we're committed to ensuring your safety, but we can't do it alone. And I can't do it without a community that is in alignment with doing the same that we're trying to do. And obviously this group is right on board with us because you're taking the time. And the last most important thing, cross your fingers and hope for a wet winter. Let it rain. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you.
Okay, well, there are a number of questions in the chat, and in the interest of time, I'm going to curate them. And the first group will be for Carl. So, Carl, there were a couple of questions about smoke from other fires, or smoke that doesn't exist because the fire is not emitting smoke. What are your thoughts about how your system will treat those situations? Can you detect a new fire if there's already smoke in the air?
From space, yes. Turns out smoke tends to get a little more transparent at infrared wavelengths. And so a spaceborne system could indeed see through smoke and find new hotspots. I mean, so we're fortunate that smoke doesn't mess up that. If you have smoke from a fire would obscure our alert wildfire cameras. If we get a big drift of smoke coming and we can't see anything, it is problematic. And I think that just emphasizes the need for the multi-altitude approach. You know, an airplane could come in, it would have infrared and it could poke through the smoke like, you know, butter cutting through butter with its optics and detectors. So that's an excellent question. Smoke will screw up visible wavelengths. They're like our eyeball, but with infrared systems, you know, some of which are in place and others will be in place. I hope within half a year we should get a little bit more of a head start on this.
And are there fires that don't produce smoke, and is your system able to detect those?
Tim, I'm gonna have my colleague Tim Ball answer that one. Tim, can you unmute? Gee, I lost him.
Unmuted.
He's probably playing video games.
Oh, he is unmuted.
Wait, well, why don't you repeat the question once more? Tim, if you're there, you could chime in. Well, the question was, are there fires that don't produce smoke? Is that the question?
Yes, and can you detect them?
Well, actually, those are from space. It won't matter. You know that we're looking at the heat from space. From the ground, I think Tim could clarify this. The amount of smoke you get depends on the moisture in the fuel and the type of fuels you're burning. So I think there is a spectrum of smoke production across fires, but I think it's fair to say many fires produce enough smoke for us to see.
Okay. Next question is the system live in Claremont Canyon now? And can you detect fires using the cameras today?
We're still under development. It'd be an overstatement to say we could detect it. Our system is working well in some parts of the state, and we hope I think by next fire season, we should be humming along pretty well. So please be careful this. Again, pray for rain and hope we make it through this season. But I think our system should be much better by next fire season. It should be working pretty well by next fire season.
Okay. Nick, do you have anything to add to that about the ability of cameras to spot fires in our neighborhood?
So the camera, well, Carl alluded to it. The Clorox building currently has a camera on it. Volmer Peak has a camera on it. We are supposed to be, and Carl and I hopefully can connect, we're supposed to be adding another camera. Well, we're looking at moving the one from Clorox building to the new high rise by the MacArthur BART station, closer to the hills. And we're supposed to be putting one at the KPF site at Grizzly Peak. And as I alluded to, we're trying to get one into East Oakland at the Coliseum. It is for us. So what Carl's using it for is phenomenal with the artificial intelligence. We're using it more for real-time situational awareness and to see what resources are needed. So if we can turn the camera and we get a report of a fire and we turn the cameras and we see significant amount of smoke, we're looking at it, and CAL FIRE is looking at it, and the State Warning Center in OES in Sacramento is looking at it. And it gives them the ability to make sure that resources are not diverted, especially air attack and aircraft, and also making sure, especially during drawdown and we have multiple fires going, to make sure that, hey, it's a real fire in Oakland Hills. It's not just a small fire. We need to really get resources going that direction. So we both are using a camera system, interestingly enough, for kind of two different purposes. One for detection for Carl, and for the fire departments, we're looking at for real-time situational awareness to make sure adequate resources are sent.
Yeah, that's very well said, Nick. That's absolutely right, and I support that.
And one thing that one additional thing is that the satellites are really going to be useful to map the direction and rate of spread. Even though the resolution is fairly coarse at this time, you can still tell quite a bit about the rate of spread and the direction. So all of those things, it's sort of a continuum from detection all the way through mop-up, really. These are all valuable resources that need to be coordinated for a coordinated attack.
That's Dr. Ball, by the way.
Okay, this next question dovetails into what you were just talking about. How does information that you get from cameras interface with the fire department communication system? So if you spot a fire with the camera, how does that get communicated so the fire trucks start going and know where to go?
So I defer to Tim and Nick on this one. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there are three ways that they get alerted. One, the whole set of cameras actually worldwide, but you get to sign up for your particular region, have a web interface. So emergency operations centers, dispatch offices can have the website up all the time, and it immediately shows where every new detection is. They also get an email and they get an SMS, a text message. So all of that is pre-programmed. So the instant that a fire is detected, they get a notification of its exact location, and it gets pictured on a map. And the maps have roads on one of the layers, so they can actually see where the fire is. And every time a new camera finds that fire, it helps to narrow down the actual location. And the satellites are very good about, they're within about 100 meters of where the fire is. So that's quite good from a great distance.
Okay, these next questions are for Nick. You alluded to the crowded, narrow streets and the width of a fire truck. Parking is a big issue in our neighborhood on these narrow streets. And what is the fire department doing about enforcing fire department? Lisa Jacobs from Dan Kalb's office kindly put down the phone numbers for reporting cars that are not legally parked. And I can give you those numbers for those of you who are not looking at the chat box. 510-238-3099 during the day, and on weekends 311 if you want to report that. But what is being done now to enforce parking rules, and can those rules be increased in crowded areas, crowded narrow streets?
So the Fire Safe Streets program that Lisa actually was very involved with starting, and Councilmember Kalb's office along with District 4 is it identifies the streets and how the streets are identified. And I mean, to be honest, I got a list of streets, or we have a list of streets that is hundreds of streets that are below 20 feet in width in the city of Oakland. And part of the process is we need to find the streets that are most critical and that don't have the ability for vehicles to park off the street, or driveways to be used, or people that are exceeding or have a large occupancy in their residence, whether it's their own family or they're using auxiliary dwelling units, and they're increasing parking on the street. And those are the ones that we're focusing on. And so how do we find those streets? Those come to us either by residents, whether it's through the council member's office, or whether they're going directly to Department of Transportation or the fire department. And also our firefighters report them to us. They'll come and say, this one's a really bad street. We had an issue. We couldn't get through to a reported heart attack. And when that happens, we will go out and we will analyze them with the Department of Transportation. From an enforcement standpoint, that does transition over to the Department of Transportation and parking enforcement. We will work with them to get the signs up and tell them that this needs to happen for public safety. Once this sign is put in place, as Lisa's posted here, those inquiries, once your street either has been or is posted as no parking, should be going through parking enforcement, and they will come up and enforce the rules of the parking sign. Did that answer the question?
Okay, there's a follow-up question. What about urging people to park halfway on the street and halfway on the sidewalk to make the street more passable?
We're not at liberty to encourage people to park on sidewalks, unfortunately, because those are access routes, and especially with challenges and individuals that have mobility challenges, they count on sidewalks for ADA compliance and to be able to move around. So when we look at a street, we don't include a sidewalk. We look at the curb to curb or the shoulder to shoulder in the measurement process, and that's how we determine if it should be have limited parking and no parking signs put on it.
Okay. A question on a slightly different subject for you. Fire retardant is often used from planes to put out fires. What's the environmental impact of fire retardant? Do you know anything about that?
Tim.
maybe somebody else want to take that one? I do. I can't. I can tell you my limited experience with it. We are always taught to keep any kind of foam or fire retardant, 200 feet away from any waterway, whether it's moving or non-moving. I would not be educated enough to tell you what the discussion is, especially where aerial dropping, because obviously they're dropping it in the watershed. I mean, you can't, we all know it's dropping in the watershed. So
right.
I'm going to pass.
Yeah, the retardant is ammonium phosphate with pectin. That's what that used to be Monsanto. Monsanto sold it to Thermogel, I guess. But it's really fertilizer that you would put in your garden. It's not nice to get on you because it stinks like ammonia. It's not good to get in your eyes, and it's not good for fishies in the creek. But in terms of anything that would really be harmful to you, or it's not really a health threat, other than a problem if you got it in your eyes. If you do get it in your eyes, just rinse your eyes really well. The other thing that's in there is pectin and the dye. So it's really horrible for fish because it takes the oxygen out of the water, but it's really not a problem for humans. It's not good to be under the drop. Don't get hit by it. I back in the day when I was on an engine, actually out of Sonol, I saw a kid being thrown down the hill because he got hit absolutely directly by a drop, and he was in really bad shape. But so don't get underneath the aircraft, but it really won't hurt you.
And if you get it onto your car, wash your car.
Wash it off,
yeah.
Yeah, actually wash it off your house too, really.
And wash it off your house and wash it off you. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
We on certain fires, we actually will, once we stabilize an incident, we will send fire engines around hosing off cars to try to get it off the cars as quickly as we can.
Okay, well, in the interest of time, I think we'll conclude our program. And again, thank everyone for coming. We had over 50 people joining us, which is really good. And we appreciate Nick and Carl for spending so much time with us. And thank you all.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
It takes a village, John.
Yeah.
What a great village we have here.
Community. That's our Fireball's motto is it takes a village to save the community. And we're really all in it together.
So I'd just like to say that two things. One, we actually got up to 57 people at our highest. And another is that we have been recording. I know that it's not a guarantee that it will turn out perfectly and all that. But to the extent that we can, we will make available as much information from the recording, and we should also get a transcript of the chat. So we could pull out some of the websites and other information. I don't want to make too many promises on behalf of our web, but I'll tell you that we'll get as much of the information as we can from this session to you so you can share it with other people. Because I'd like to join John in saying thank you both to Carl and to Nick and to Tim for pitching in as requested.
Yeah, and thank you, Elizabeth, for being our web guru and putting this together technically for us. We will try to put this information on our website, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Or rest of the weekend.
Zoom coffee, Nick.
Zoom coffee and rain Tuesday, I think. Tuesday or Wednesday, rain.
Okay, after Tuesday or Wednesday.